everyone. We are here with Kim Graham, Emmy Award winning amazing casting director and advocate for actors. And she's going to be speaking to us today about the new normal, which is how things have changed. And some things that we're used to, like, getting our actor materials together and kind of what casting means. First off, I want to say thank you, Kim, for being here. For everyone who's watching, we're going to do a little Q&A after this discussion, but if you have any questions or anything, feel free to text them to the Kalakar's host, and I will try to incorporate those into our chat. Otherwise, you can actually speak to Kim yourself, and you will be able to ask her questions at the end. So there you go. First off, Kim, I wanted to ask you, how did you get into casting?
Okay.
The long journey.
I've been trying to, the short version of it. I was an opera singer. That was my first career. I did that about 10 years professionally and got burnt out and took a break and thinking it would call me back, and it just never really called me back. And so I was like, all right, what's next? And I then moved to New York finally, and I was waiting tables, and a friend of mine, suggested I get into, maybe I'd be good in casting. Probably because she went to a lot of theater with me, and I was always analyzing everything. I'd be like, now why did he say, so like most of us, we get in through an internship. So she gave me some names of some casting offices. I applied, and Judy Henderson took me in, and I was able to collect unemployment so I could do it full time, really jump in with both feet and see if it was something I wanted to do. Then the story gets a little unusual because I had become friendly with her associate at the time, and she was leaving to go to another office, and she had said to me, I want to recommend you for my job. And I was like, oh, and I'm thinking, I've been here 2 weeks. Like, the woman's not going to give me an associate position. And I also, I kind of had an idea, maybe I'll do this for a few months. Maybe I'll go to another office, And so I didn't really put much weight into it. And then Judy offered me the job, and I just thought in my gut, there's a reason this is happening. Just do it, see how you feel about it. You'll figure it out. And that was in 2003. So that's my story.
Great. So how do people get into casting? Like, if anybody is watching and they've always been curious about getting into casting, what kind of avenues would you recommend?
Well, here again, I think everybody will tell you an internship is usually a stepping stone. You might have to do a couple internships at different offices. It's, especially in New York, it's a fairly small community compared to LA. And a lot of us that have committed to this career have been in it for a while. So it's hard to kind of get into these positions, but the next step, and then you would maybe work as an assistant and then moved up to associate, and then, full on CD. That's the only way I know how to do it.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Well, we have a lot of actors on here, but we also have a lot of filmmakers, independent filmmakers. For filmmakers who who are just kind of starting out and doing more short films and independent work, why would they need a casting director, or why would they use a casting director? Do you think it's a based on how big a project is, or if they're trying to look for something obscure?
Well, I certainly know independent film directors and producers that have, cast their own projects. But I think what you're getting is a quality of service. I mean, part of my job is to know the pool of actors, to have the resources to find them. Mm-hmm. So that would be really the reason, if you wanted to have a certain quality and cachet to your project, why would you not hire a casting director? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, you could cast your friends or, this person or whatever. I mean, people do it all the time, but I think there's some value in it, in terms of taking that part of the process off and putting it on somebody like myself, where I can get what I can fulfill that need for you,
Right.
know?
How does it work as far as kind of who the decision makers are, between the casting director and the producers and the directors? What is that balance?
Well, I'd like to think I hold all the power, but I don't. I'm one step in the process. It's ultimately up to, well, it depends. I mean, if you're working on a television show, it's multi-layered, but the helm of the show is the showrunner. So while he might have, I can certainly offer my opinion in terms of when we have a casting, I don't show everybody. They don't have time for that. So I'll show what I feel is the top choices. And then everybody will discuss, the writers, the director of the episode, blah, blah, blah. And then, the showrunner will kind of let them all talk amongst themselves. And, if we sort of see everybody kind of heading in the same direction, he might go that way. But I've also seen our showrunner just go with a completely different person because that's just what he felt in his gut. And then that's got to go up to another level to production company and then get approved by the network. If you're working on an independent film, you're probably dealing with a director and a producer or two. I think, it's a collaboration. So it kind of depends on who, you might have a producer that'll be like, I really trust my director and I want him to pick his people. But then you might have a producer that's like, I ultimately will have the say, you know what I mean?
Right.
I haven't run into many problems with that. It's just, it kind of depends on the relationship they have with each other. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I get to open the door for you
Right.
guys, but then after it goes somewhere else.
Makes sense. So we have some interesting questions everyone just wants to jump into. How do you find and choose your performers? What is it based on relationships that you have with agencies? Is it based on something else? People you see out in the world? And especially right now, if that's the way, then how do actors get noticed?
Well, I don't think there's one way. I mean, we certainly rely a lot on our agents and managers. But we pull from all sources, actors that I've met, maybe in a workshop or, somebody I've heard of, or, it can come from anywhere. But I would say for the most part, it's the agents and managers. I mean, it's taken years for me to get to know their talent pools and build those relationships. It's a constant, and then people are coming in and out of the business all the time. So it's really putting the pieces of a puzzle together. There's just no one way to do it. I can't say I only rely on my agents and managers, but sometimes a project doesn't give me a budget where they're really going to work on them. So I have to think outside the box, or I have to go directly to the actors that I know, or, post on, like, say, Actors Access and pull my talent from there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a one size fits all kind of process.
And then for these actors that you find on Actors Access, what about if they're, kind of a new actor? Are you looking at self-tapes from people who are inexperienced or who are just starting out in the business?
Yeah, here again, it's not a one size fits all, right? I mean, so much is determined by a budget that I'm dealing with. I may go with a lesser experienced actor, but I usually rely a lot on their reels.
Okay.
Especially if I've never met them, I don't know their work.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's just fresh out of school, I don't expect you to have professional credits, so I'm not going to judge you on that, kind of thing. yeah, I mean, like when I was posting our casting breakdowns in Europe, that's all I had to go on because I couldn't decipher their CVs. Um, I'm like, great, you played Bob in a film, but I don't even know the film. And who's Bob, the bus driver? You know, like it's, you know, so the reel really became the thing of whether or not I could see how they acted on camera.
Right.
Here again, I mean, these are great questions, but there is not like, this is the way,
Yeah.
you know, to fulfill a need. And, you know, sometimes you have a million choices, you know, and then sometimes you have a really small pool to choose from, especially when you get to real specific skill sets like languages and things like that. So, you know, it's just kind of all.
I'm sure you had a lot of that when you were working in Homeland, right? With all the different years and different languages and different sets and different countries.
Oh my God. I had to find people that spoke Farsi and Kurdish and Urdu and then the last season, Pashto. I was like, I don't even know what Pashto is. And they said, oh, it's the tribal language of the Taliban. I was like, oh yeah, let me just go into that file of actors that, you know, I mean, that was a real challenge, you know, but we had boots on the ground all over the world trying to find everybody that could bring all of it together. Not only the language, but the acting,
right?
Authenticity. You know what I mean? It wasn't enough to just be able to, oh, you know, I mean, I was a trained opera singer. I studied French, German, and Italian. But if you heard me speak, you know, I'm not any of those. You know what I mean? So it was beyond the proficiency of the language. It had to sound authentic because this, you know, our show is viewed all over the world. So, you know, somebody sitting in Afghanistan watching Homeland's going to be like, that guy is an Afghani, you know, that's not pure Dari. That's got, you know, a Persian accent or something. So, yeah, so I felt like every season brought some new skill set challenge. And I was like, really, guys, can we just, we just set it here. I know English.
So I'm going to go back quickly to you speaking about reels and going off of actors' reels. For actors that don't have a body of work that is, you know, they're just starting out or whatever, do you think, you know, is a monologue sufficient? Or, you know, there are all these companies that you can pay to get a reel made, have scenes made with a partner and all of that, like professional looking.
Yeah, I've worked with
you know, what are your views on that?
Well, for my case, monologues don't really help me.
Okay.
Because I'm interested in seeing the relationship that you're having with the other character, you know. Yes, these companies have developed out of the need for get something, you know, so we can shoot you out. And I've worked with some of them, whether coaching a scene or working or picking a scene for them to shoot. You know, for me, it's just anything helps. But you know, I don't hold any. I would rather you have one really good thing that you taped than like try to force yourself to make a reel that you're not really proud of just to throw something together. That actually could hurt you more than help you. And then having said that, I'd rather just see what you can do in the room or what you can do on a self-tape, you know, than not have a good quality reel, if that makes sense. You know, I'd rather you have nothing. Let me just see what you can do.
Give us 1 second, Kim. Guys, technical difficulties.
Listen, you know, this is all new for all of us, so we're dealing with all kinds of technical elements.
Oh yeah, I had one where the whole system went down right in the middle of my speech, and I was the host, so I didn't even know how it continued on.
Oh no, I feel you. I feel you.
So,
Even working at, you know, teaching online and stuff, and people's connectivity and the videos, you know, freezes, and I'm like, how, you know, they can't help that.
The best one I heard was a friend of mine said to me, she goes, you know, she's on a Zoom meeting and constantly like the kid walks by. I said, wait, where are you going? You're supposed to be in class. They just walk away from the computers nowadays because they're not used to it, the little ones.
They're not. I saw a picture actually of a little kid, probably like I'm going to guess kindergarten, first grade, that started crying because he couldn't figure out how to do, you know, how to get online with this teacher and everything. And I was like, oh man. And these kids, you know, they come out of the womb with like, you know.
Yeah, but they're just done with this Zoom life.
Well, I don't blame them. I don't blame them, you know.
While we wait for Ami, do you want to tell us your favorite casting story? Like something that was so odd and unusual?
Okay, that's a lot because I have a bunch of it. It's odd and unusual.
Someone where you're like, this person will never get the job, but then they were just so good, but they were so crazy when they came into the room.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
I can hear you. I can hear you. Well, I mean, I do have some crazy stories. Yes.
I'm going to let Ami get back to the originally planned agenda, but I will ask that question later.
All right. We'll ask the question later.
Finish the question. Now I'm interested in what.
Well, she asked me if I had any like crazy casting experiences or somebody that I didn't think would get the job that got the job. Usually if they're crazy in the room for me, I'm not likely to send them through to the producer and director. I mean, I don't want to get a call on set, be like, who is this person? They're crazy.
That's so much crazy, but you know, like how someone has a really bad day, they come in and all of a sudden it's like, wow.
Oh, well, you know what? I mean, I've been doing this long enough that like, if I have actors that have come for me multiple times and like then have a bad day, like I'll kind of figure out like, yeah, they're just off their game today. It's having the luxury of having worked with them before, but if they were brand new and they had a bad day, it's hard for me to judge, like, you know what I'm saying? But I've certainly, like, I had one guy come in and I didn't know his work, but he had a really good, strong resume, you know what I mean? And he just kept tripping up on this one passage in the text. And he was like, kept trying to start again and again. And I just knew he wasn't going to be able to do it, you know? So I was like, let's just take a minute. I'm like, how you doing? Where are you from? You know, what happened in your week? Like, I tried to kind of calm him down so he could reset. And then I'd be like, okay, let's try it again, you know? And I remember he was walking out and he was like, thank you, you know, because I was like, I just knew it wasn't because he wasn't a good actor. He just, you know, when you start like, and then you get more frustrated when you try again and it just like, you're just like, this is not going to work when you're in this space right now. So let's just chill, take a minute.
That was very kind of you. Okay, I'm going to jump back to Madam Ami.
No, because I was a performer too. I've auditioned too many a times. I was a competitive singer. I mean, I know what that feels like when you're going in and you're in your headspace and I got to impress them. I got to get the job, or I got to win the prize, or, I can't make a mistake. And, and everybody has a little bit of that in them. And, I think perhaps what I can offer is an understanding, having been there, and saying, I get it. I totally know where you are. I totally get where you're at. And I know a way to get you out of it if you just trust me, because I want everybody to do really well. I want you to get the job. I want to be hired again. So, we're there rooting for you. I tell actors, nobody spends hundreds of dollars for a Broadway ticket, sits in their seat and goes, I hope this sucks. Nobody does that. Everybody wants to leave being like, that was amazing, So that's how you have to feel, that we feel about you in the room. We're rooting for you. We want you to do well. We want to be able to be excited to send you up to the team. And so, just get that silliness out of your head. That's what I'd say.
Easier said than done sometimes, right?
I know that. Listen, it took me 30 years to get to that place, but It is possible. That you have to be gentle with yourself. And you have to let yourself fail, because we all fail. But what does that mean? We just get up and do it again. That's it.
Absolutely.
We're not saving lives. I didn't ask you to fly an airplane. You know what I mean? We're just acting.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So do you remember what you were talking to me about?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
Just really with the new normal, meaning self-tapes and Zoom, it's like, everyone learned how to audition, and now we're kind of relearning all of this in a very different way. Do you have any tips as far as self-tapes? What are the rules for a good self-tape, background lighting, sound, stuff like that?
Well, it's funny because I was actually dealing with self-tapes before they were in, because of the nature of our show. We were shooting all over the world. So sometimes I had to have people tape locally, you know. Look, I think it's what everybody's going to tell you. Good lighting, good sound, use a reader. You know,
Okay.
I don't need an overly produced, blocked, you know, camera following you, sitting to, you know, on the couch kind of thing to convince me you can act.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're always considering, even when you're in the room, what few elements we have to work with in an audition. Like, we understand it's an unnatural thing, you know, because we don't have all the stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so the focus should really be on what is the relationship I'm having with the other character. You know, asking those questions. What does my character want? What's the obstruction that's getting in the way of it? And what's the result of that? You know, and creating a really strong arc. And being prepared to be flexible and adjusted. Because that's really important too, you know?
That would be, you know, maybe for the producer session afterwards.
Sure. But even, look, even if I get a self-tape from you and I was like, you know, maybe the response from the team is like, you know, I wish she just would have went a little harder on him for this, or she should be more frustrated. I'll be like, well, that's a direction. That has nothing to do with her ability as an actor. She made a choice and it wasn't the choice you saw. I'll give her the note and have her retape, you know? And I've learned over the years, if I bring you in the room, you know, if I give you an adjustment, I don't want you to feel like, oh God, I didn't make the right choice in the first take. I probably most often have more information than you do about what we're looking for. And I just ask that you go with me.
Right.
And that way that gives me options. So I might have a couple takes to choose from, and I can present one. If they say, I wish you would have done this, I'll be like, well, what about this? You know? So, I mean, it's a learning process.
Are there ways to stand out in a self-tape?
You know, just be truthful with the character, you know? I've learned pretty good to kind of spot when somebody's trying to act or show me what they think I want to see, or, you know, cover all range of their emotions. You know, here's my entire palette, you know, which is sometimes, you know, you might hear us say something like, just keep it simple, stupid, you know, don't overthink it. It is what it is, you know. I don't know. That's what I can think of.
That easy.
Well, it's just, I just think people overthink things.
Right.
You know, like, I would say more so with like a co-star role. I'm like, you don't have a backstory. It's right. The line is right this way, sir. Like, don't overthink it. And you know what? You are probably, the people that are reading for this role are varied. You know, I'm not bringing in 10 white girls with blonde hair and blue eyes. You know, you might read for it. I might have a guy read for it. I might have an older person read for it, or young, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of the day, it's just like, come in and say the line, don't overthink it. Because really after that, you know, one of my writers said it best, you know, we're dressing the set. Co-stars are live wallpaper. They're integral to the setting of the story, but it's not their story. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think when you overthink it, you can actually do yourself some harm.
How often do you give someone the opportunity to retape? If you saw some potential in them and they just needed a direction.
Sure. Well, I feel like if I was confident enough to bring you up to the producers and there was a feedback, then I would definitely give you a note with an adjustment. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not gonna, like, it's kind of related, but like, I had an ambassador that I had to cast, and they were like, yeah, you know, show us whatever. So I showed them, right? But they never said that they had to have an accent. So everybody taped in their American accents. And then they're like, oh, really be nice if they don't sound American. I was like, it would really be nice if you had told me that before I had them tape, you know? So I went back to their resumes, and I was like, oh, she could do a British accent. Why don't you do this in the British accent? Why don't you do this in the French accent? You know, kind of thing. So, you know, sometimes it happens that way, but here again, I wasn't going to scrap everybody and start over because they couldn't give me that part.
Right.
You were my top picks to begin with. So let me exhaust that pool and then I'll go to the next thing, you know?
Yeah, makes sense. And are there things that you would tell someone not to do in a self-tape? Something that's just like a pet peeve or something that is gonna be terrible?
Well, don't ever look directly in the camera.
Okay.
If it's not, you know, deal with the reader. You know, we want to watch you and your world. So I think if you're doing everything straight to the camera, unless it's specifically that, like I'm doing a confessional or, you know what I mean, like a Modern Family kind of, we bring the audience into it. Because to me that just screams amateur. Like you don't understand how the camera works and everything. I don't need much of I mean, we're very specific when we ask people to self-tape. We have like self-tape instructions, but like even something as simple as your slate, like just give us the information. You don't have to be like, hi guys, it's Kim coming out to you from New York City. I'm going to be portraying the role of, you know, like, I'm like, ugh, because we work so quickly through our tapes. Like I can't sit through 10 seconds of that. It's like, just get to the work.
Right.
Just introduce yourself, give me, you know, if I need your name, height, and role, say it, and then get into the work, you know? So that's just more of like filler that I don't need. Because like I said, we move so quickly. So yeah. I don't need the first, you know, or too long of a pre-beat. You know, if you start the camera rolling and then I don't see you for 5 seconds, that annoys me. Like take a beat, fine, but like get into it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Here again, it's all about, we're watching a lot of tapes. So, you know, to be like, where is she? Oh, there she finally shows up in the frame kind of thing is just, that's probably a pet peeve, I would say.
Yeah. And as far as Zoom goes, and so this is new also, a lot of people are doing producer sessions over Zoom or other similar apps. What are kind of the pitfalls that you've been seeing actors get into over these Zooms?
Well, when I first jumped online teaching, I think, you know, I mean, I was victim of it too. When I got on Zoom, I was sort of like, hi guys, can you hear me? You know, and sort of pushing through vocally. And then realizing like, I don't have to do that. Like you're close. I just have to put you back in the room with me. Like if you were sitting right in front of me, and stop feeling like I have to push all of this through Zoom. And also finding an eye line where, going back to my point before, I don't want to be a part of your scene. I want to watch you in your space. So it was a lot of reminding of people of like, bring everything back into the room, put everything closer to you, and deal with that person in your space, you know? And so, because then you're switching back to like dealing with me here, right? So you kind of have to like reset your mind and be like, okay, I don't have to shout. I don't, you know, because a lot of people were pushing their acting through Zoom.
Yeah, makes sense.
The biggest thing. I can tell you that some actors who have taken some classes said, oh, you're the only one that's kind of talking about that. Like and I'm like, look, I don't know. We're all trying to figure this out. That was my first reaction when everybody was doing their scenes. I was like, why is everybody like yelling? And, you know, because maybe the reader, like you and I are doing a scene, you're in a completely different area. So you're trying to make sure you can hear me and I can hear you. And so there's just all those other, just forget about it. Just play. I can hear you. I can hear you. So that was the biggest challenge, I think.
And for people who are watching right now, you do Zoom classes. You've been doing Zoom classes. So if you guys are not following Kimberly Graham Casting on Facebook, definitely do that, because you're constantly posting about classes that you've been doing over Zoom. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of the way that you think actors should be practicing over Zoom? or one of the ways.
I mean, like taking classes and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Well, look, I think you should be doing something every day towards your craft. I mean, I understand, you know, a lot of us are, you know, semi-lockdown, whatever that means now. But, you know, it forced us all to kind of pivot, right? And I wanted to find, like, you know, when we first got on lockdown in New York City, I was like, oh God, what am I going to do? Like, all my work just went away, right? And then, you know, I've always taught in between, well, even when I was casting Homeland, but in between, you know, on my hiatus, you know, like this fall, I was in Europe and the Middle East teaching. So I always liked it. So I was like, but I'm like, God, is anybody going to want to take a class online? Like, people are worried about money, unemployment, what's going on, you know? So I was trying to sort of, you know, figure out what I could do. And so, you know, I lowered my fee, and then I was like, all right, you know, give a portion of my class to charity and we'll all pick it as a group. Because that just made me feel like I was at least doing something while I'm sitting in my home. And people really, you know, people were really desperate to like keep going, stay involved, you know. They're like, now my yoga classes are online, or, you know, I can't go to my gym. And I'm like, I know, you know, we're all just adjusting. And now, having done it for all these months, like, it's just the new normal for me now, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it doesn't stay that way forever, but I do feel we'll be working like this for a while. So, you know, it's been good. I mean, I think you have an opportunity in a way maybe you hadn't before, to work with some people that might not know your work, you know, because everybody's working online. You know, I did a class with people from Finland, from Amsterdam, Israel. I did something with Australia and New Zealand. I mean, I had to start my class at like 9 p.m., but because of the time zone. But I wouldn't have never met them, right? If you know what I mean, we didn't have this opportunity. So I'm telling actors, like, and take advantage of it, because, you know, everything online is fairly, you know, cheap right now. Just keep that muscle going, you know, because you want to be ready to go when we're ready to go, you know.
Yeah. And as far as these sessions that you've been doing on Zoom, have you been able to meet actors that you haven't met, or have you started a file to keep these actors in mind for later? That sort of thing. Is that how this goes?
Yeah, I mean, I have, you know, before my class, I have everybody send their headshot and resumes, or if they have the reel, and I save them on my desktop. And I have a big, you got to see if I lose this book, I'm in so much trouble. But I have, you know, this is a book of just all my classes that I've been doing, you know. And yeah, so I've definitely met some people that I wouldn't have met before, which has been great, you know. I mean, I've only had one casting thing since we've been on lockdown. I have some scripts in my hand right now, but it's, you know, the ones, you know, that approach me, they're like, so Showtime's reading it right now, or, you know, we're still waiting for the green light, or, you know, there's something. So, you know, we're just kind of like, we're in limbo. And I know some productions are, you know, casting now and with the hopes of shooting in October or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the challenge I ran into was the COVID testing. I was I was adding a role to a pilot that had already shot, and they were in Chicago, and I was like, look, let's see what I can find in that area, because I don't know, at this point, I don't know how many people were ready to fly and all that stuff. And so I did some searches, and I found somebody, and she lived in Michigan, so she could drive herself there. But then we ran into SAG-AFTRA requires no sooner than 48 hours before the shoot can you get your COVID test. But all the testing facilities that this woman had around her gave a 5 to 10 day turnaround.
Right.
And now we were able to, you know, work it out. I think they ended up having her just do it in Chicago. But I was like, okay, great. That's just going to be like one more thing we're going to be having to deal with, unless, you know, you have the money and the resources to get rapid testing done.
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah, I think that's going to be a challenge for us for a while until we get a vaccine or, whatever the solution is to, keep this at bay. That's been my experience. So at this point,
are things starting to look like they're opening up slowly? I know LA, some things are already starting to.
yeah, I mean, say productions that are shooting in Vancouver, they're going to strictly use people from that area. I think everybody's trying to. I know Tyler Perry's, doing his sort of own quarantine city, if you will. That was some of the things that, I did a television academy, forum with not me, I was an observer, but as a member, we had Jada Pinkett's production company. We had somebody from Nickelodeon, somebody from ABC. Now that was done really more about how did you guys finish your production when you were in the middle of it and we got locked down. And so, they were sort of talking about different ways, some did robotic cameras, some decided The Bachelor, I think, they ended up just quarantining cast and crew to finish up. Normally they stay in separate areas and they just were if we're going to finish this, we're just going to have to, all live together basically, and then quarantine ourselves. I know Judy Henderson's working on City on a Hill. The word I had about that is that they were hoping to get back to production in mid-October. So, I think it's one of those putt kind of situations. I mean, I feel like the bigger productions that have money, have figured out their own ways of okay, we're all going to quarantine together and then we're going to do our thing and then we're all going to go to quarantine afterwards. Although I'm okay, 14 days on either end and say you have a 3-day shoot. That's there's a month, Yeah. So how do you compensate for that? It's, I think we're all just trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have wristbands and they have certain areas they can go on set. They have skeletal crews. But look, we're artists. We all, you just learn how to pivot. So we're figuring it out.
Great. I think we should open it up to questions. We have a lot of questions for you.
Sure.
Let us start with Ashwini. You had a question for Kimberly. See if we can get her on there. There we are.
Oh, okay. You can see me. My Zoom closed for a second. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here and for helping us out. I was wondering if you think that because of COVID and all the testing that's required, actors will be kind of limited to productions in their areas only.
I know just from little rumors and stuff that I hear, so I don't think there's one hard and fast rule about it. I think people are kind of coming up with their own sort of plans about, like I said, with Vancouver, they've decided we're not going to try to get anybody out of LA. We're just going to use local people. I mean, really, I think it's the confidence if, some people they're yeah, I'm cool to travel. Yeah, I have no problem flying or taking a train, or I could drive myself or something. I think just all those things have to be taken into consideration. And the testing thing, I think it's just got to get more consistent where we can, some people are saying okay, we're going to do production, we're going to test before, and then we're going to test throughout, if you have those tests available to you. We just don't have that mass production of testing at this stage available to everybody to ensure that can happen. So I know I'm not really giving you a definitive answer because I don't think there is one. Like I said, I think everybody's just kind of figuring out their own thing and how to get through stuff.
Right. Thank you so much. A super quick follow-up is, if someone tests positive, then do you replace them?
I think it depends on the production. You know what I mean? Because that was my issue. I was okay, so I'm going to get this actress from Michigan. She shows up to Chicago and she's positive. Now what? do you ask her to quarantine for 14 days? And that, like, I don't know. That is a good question. I don't know how people are going to handle that, because I don't know of anybody that has had to have that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know anybody personally that's had that situation. I'd be curious myself. That's a good question. I'm supposed to have a CSA meeting, I don't know, 2 days from now or something. That'd be a good question to pose if anybody's run into something like that and what they're doing. But I wish I could help you right now, but I can't.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Our next question is from Sonali Chandra. Let's see if we can get her on. Sonali. It's a good question too.
Yeah, I wish, it's funny when we went on lockdown, actors were like, when do you think we're getting back to work? When do you think? And I was like, hey man, I got thrown into this like you. It's hard. I just, there's just some things I just couldn't tell you right now. I think we're all just figuring it out.
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
I don't think she's here. So we'll just move on to the next person. We have a question from Sandhya Jane Patel.
Hi guys, I'm not gonna show my face because it's terrible lighting. I don't have prop up my computer. My husband just
You got
dishes.
it. I got it. You got it.
Kimberly, I just Googled your headshot, please. You are gorgeoso, and I would love to hear you sing sometime, by the way.
Very sweet.
I have two questions, actually. One was, how does your opera background sort of inform your current work, if at all?
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, sort of what percentage of your current casting projects, which I know are very low due to the current situation, how much of that are you seeing as diverse or intersectional, and do you see that rising?
Good question. So first is how did my opera, I just did a podcast today, and so a question like that was kind of came up, and I was like, more than I thought. I think, I was playing organ at age 4. I played flute and drums and piano and clarinet, and then moved into singing. And so, then my, serious vocal training has informed me in ways that I didn't imagine in this capacity, in terms of people using the breath, staying connected to their bodies, connecting with their work, phrasing. So a lot more than I anticipated. And I will even say my 18 plus on and off years of waiting tables has also helped me as a casting director.
Totally.
Because you have to learn, first of all, everybody's got to eat. So you got every kind of person, right? You had to anticipate your client's needs. There's some directors that are like, need to be coddled. Other ones are like, just show me your top 5 and we're good. And some want to see the world, and some, need more attention than others. You have to be able to understand the psychology of that, because you're going to deal with different personalities. Time management, multitasking, all those things that I thought were just back there in my life, I use all the time. So I think I draw from a lot. In terms of your second question, look, I worked on a very diverse show. When we could, we're very much about whenever we can open up a role, we open it up, Now, having said that, I also worked on a very specific show where if I needed a German, I needed a German, so I couldn't open it up. It didn't work for the story, but absolutely. In fact, I laughed because when we shot our season in New York, that's all I heard was like, go diverse, more diversity, more diversity. And I was like, oh my God, I gave you a Nigerian family. I have a Spanish lady friend. I have I was like, I'm going diverse, because we knew it was important to reflect the world that we were playing in, you know, and we've been screaming about this for years, just know, guys, you know, about opening up roles. And you know, it's always, you know, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, but I'm really hopeful. You know, we've seen it happen on Broadway using disabled actors, thinking outside the box. You know, think of what Hamilton did. You know,
Yeah.
now, could you do that with Raisin in the Sun? No, it's not part of that story. But in terms of these political figures, we can reimagine them in that way. But I'm super hopeful. I'm super hopeful. I mean, I feel like diversity is like the thing now.
Do you find, I'm sorry, just a follow-up question. Do you find yourself bringing in partners in that if you are really, I mean, I guess not for Homeland, since obviously that was a very diverse show, but do you find yourself pulling in casting partners if you do want to kind of push for more diversity in a role, or to show a producer or director some more options?
When you say casting partners, what do you mean?
Like another casting agent, or maybe a cultural producer or somebody to just come in and help with advocating for more diversity in a particular role.
I mean, I haven't needed to. You know, when I discuss a project with, you know, the director and producer, you know, we'll walk through everything. We'll be like, what do we think? Can we go male and or female with this role? Can we go, you know what I mean? I've never felt the need like I've got to bring somebody in to advocate. Do you know what I mean? I kind of trust, I try to make sure that I'm very clear if I can open up things, if it makes sense for the project. And when I can, I do. So yeah, like I said, I've never really been like, I have to fight for bringing in diverse people. Thank God.
Great. Thanks.
No,
Thank you.
I say thank
I'm
God.
gonna go ahead and ask Sonali's question, because apparently her speaker is not working. Her question was, how important is the social media footprint, the number of followers you have on your Instagram and Twitter, for picking an actor, casting an actor?
Right. So I know it happens. I have been asked to do that, you know, and I've usually turned down the project. It's not important to me. That's not how I cast. I try to get the best actor for the role. If the project's good, the followers will come. I understand it. It's just not the way I work. I know it's a lot in Europe as well, because they've been told like you have to have a certain amount of followers or a certain amount of Instagram. I think we're pulling away from the craft when we do that. And then we're just sort of, you know, I don't know. It's not to say you couldn't find somebody that way, but that's just not how I've worked. And I think we're getting away from the importance of the story in scripted material when you do that, unless you're highlighting that, you know, Instagram star or something like that. But we've seen those projects and they suck, you know, so maybe I'll never work again in this town. That's fine.
I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Like, if that's where we're going, then I'm not on board. I'm just not. I'm looking for a craft. I'm looking for actors. You know, I'm very proud of what we got on Homeland. And, you know, everybody down to the co-star was quality. You know, they had a good, rich inner life. I just don't want to step away from that. Then I feel like I'm cheapening what I do. So that's my answer.
That's great. Thanks. We have a question from Anita Daswani. There she is.
Hi. Sorry, my background's on and it's distracting right now. That was actually one of my questions. Is it ever okay to submit a self-tape using a virtual background? Is that distracting? If it's done properly, of course, and it's fitting for a particular scene, and now that we have that ability to do so.
My gut is going to be no, don't use a virtual. If you have a blue screen, something clean. The thing is, the idea is I want to be looking at you, not everything around you.
Right.
I had a guy, it's funny because in one of my classes, the scene took place like in a cafe. So he found this cafe background, but I was like, dude, it's like, where's Waldo? I can't find you, and as you can see by the outline, if you move a certain way, it's like in and out. So just keep it clean. I want to watch you.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We have time for a couple of more questions. We have a question from Asim Tawari.
Hi.
Hey, Kim, how are you? Hey, Emily.
Good.
I did decide to activate my video, even though I look awful. But here's my question. I worked in a casting office last year, and we wouldn't get to all the tape that came in. So how important is it in your office to turn in your tape quicker?
Well, so, I mean, we're going to start watching as soon as they come in, right? So, like, if we really liked your tape, we're going to send that up. And then, they might be like, oh my God, he's great. But let's see some more just to confirm. And so we would send up the next batch or the next, you know what I mean? And they may go back to you, but like, if they've already decided on somebody and you've got another tape in like 2 days later, it could be an issue because we've already presented people. You guys ever got through all your tapes?
I probably should not mention the name of the casting office.
Don't do it.
No, that's fine. Only because like
it's a really big casting office. There's a lot of tape coming in, a lot.
But I mean, are these requested tapes?
Yeah.
Because like, here's the thing, like, people go like, self-tape. I'm like, yeah, it's great. I don't have to be limited to how many people I see in the room in the day. But that also means I'm not going to ask 40 people to tape for the same role. Like, if I got to go further, I'll keep going until I find the actor. But that's, why would you like, okay. I'm thinking like, why would I put more work on myself? Like yes, I could open it up. Like maybe instead of seeing 8 choices for the day, I could ask for 15 people to tape. But then I'm going to go thoughtfully through those 15 people. And I don't feel like if I have choices, then I'll go on and I'll look at the next batch. But I'm not going to be like 50 people tape. I wonder if, maybe they're doing that to appease actors.
So
I'll tell you what I ran into. And this was really more LA because they're tricky dickies out there. I'll tell you. I'll ask a self-tape request for a particular client at an office. And then what the agent would do, because everything we had was like NDAs and, you had the, passwords and stuff like that to access our sites and everything. Well, they would go and tell 5 other clients of theirs, hey, Kimberly wants to have you read for Homeland. Now you as an actor would be like, oh my God, my agent's getting me auditions for Homeland, right? When the fact was I didn't ask for it. And then he would say like, oh, by the way, I had so-and-so tape or this person tape. And I was like, I didn't ask for that. You know what I mean? I'm not to say that I would, find somebody that would be like, oh shit, I should have asked for that. But, there's that trickiness that happens sometimes in the industry where if someone's trying to build their resume and they're like, do you have relationships with these big offices? You know what I mean? And you're going to be like, yeah, I do. I don't know. It smelled a little bit to me. I was like, don't do that, dude. Like, unless you're just like, you have to see this person. I'm so passionate about him. Like, please, may I? Give me the courtesy of that instead of just, playing the game of like, my clients think I'm getting all these auditions for them when they're not. So I don't know. I wonder if a little bit of that is. That would be like an actor friend of mine or somebody I know being like, hey, Kim, I saw your breakdown for, this role. I feel like I'm right for it. Do you mind if I tape? I'll be like, if I feel it, I'll be like, you know what? Go ahead. Yeah. Thanks for reaching out. Like, my head's in so many different places. But I don't feel the instinct like, oh, just have them tape, or not, they're not going to get it anyway. Like, I don't know. That seems icky to me.
So then the theory of don't wait until the day of the deadline is wrong. Like, it's being seen.
I mean, do I understand if you're like, they're in the middle of traveling, or can they get it to you by, we always try to give people a day or two, like, you know what I mean? But obviously as soon as you can is always helpful, just because of the way we work. We want to be able to present as soon as possible. So, we're going to want to go through whatever we've gotten so far in the batch and watch it, and then send up, our 2 or 3 choices, and then wait for the feedback. And then if they go, so-and-so is great, but let's see some more people, because we live in a world now where nobody wants to make the wrong choice. Right. So I don't know if you get that, like, they'll be like honed in on one person, but they want to see more people. Well, I started to pick up on that when I was casting. And so I remember one time, because we were looking for like a Russian man who had to be in the States and work in the States, right? And there's like, over 50 years old, there's like maybe 10 really good Russian speaking actors, right? And so we had so many Russian roles, I was just recycling them, like, read for this role and I'll read for this role, and and I kept getting like, oh, he's great, let's see more. And I just was like, nope, that's it, pick, because they'll keep me running through the ringer. And the guy they picked was wonderful, perfectly fine. But I think we live in a culture of like, nobody wants to make that wrong choice, or is there somebody else out there? Just make sure, kind of feeling. So because Judy was like, well, maybe we can. I was like, no, there's no more people. This is it, pick. I just sort of stopped showing people. Nice. Just let them just be like, nope, that's all we have. Sorry. So fun. I bet you learned a lot working in a casting office.
I did. Yeah. It's enlightening. I would encourage anyone on this to do it. Just go ahead.
Does it make you, as an actor, does it make you be like, I totally love acting, or you're like, fuck, this is like the processes, you know what I mean, can be discouraging?
I want to keep everybody encouraged, but I'm definitely a half writer and half actor after that experience, for sure.
Yeah.
But no, go get them, you guys.
Oh, for sure. I'm just saying, like, I've seen, so many interns come in and out of our offices, and they'll be like, this is overwhelming, or like, wow, like, actually, now that I understand how it works, I don't feel too bad if I don't get the job, or because there's so many other factors, like, there's that part of it that you get to see that maybe not every actor.
That was really enlightening. Like, yeah, after the first month or so, especially after like 2 months, like, your brain just picks up, I guess, on it. You're like, this person's just not going to work out. Like, the second they walk in, they're fantastic, but you're just like, that's not going to happen.
Right.
I don't know how or why. Like, but I knew what my CD was, thinking the second I walked in.
Yeah. Your audition starts as soon as you walk in.
Yeah.
It sure does. Yeah.
Thank you, Seam. Let's get to an earlier question from Ria Patel.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Cool.
There we go. You there? Nope.
Oh, there you go.
Am I on? Yes, I'm unmuted right now. Okay. Hello.
Hello.
So first of all, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your time. My question is, so I have an Australian accent. I grew up in Australia. And I think one of the issues I run into is if I should either when I do my self-tape, if I should do like have my real voice, or should I be putting an American accent on? And same thing when I'm walking into an audition, should I be pretending to have an American accent? Or?
That's a good question. I think it's not there's no harm in asking that you're a native Australian. Do you prefer an American accent? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is a good question. Because you obviously you don't look like you're from Australia.
No. I am Indian. I was born there, but I just grew up here in Australia. Yeah.
Right. But somebody's going to look at your picture and you walk in with an Australian accent. They're going to be like, whoa, I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it has to be conducive to the project.
Okay.
I think you just have to say like, I have an Australian accent, but I'm happy to do an American accent if you prefer, or are you okay with me doing it with the Australian? Like, I have no problem somebody telling me that.
Okay. I think I just get worried that if I walk in with the accent and then I think they're going to purposely like try to, when I put the American accent on, they're going to try to find that Australian accent. So
no, you know what? I see what you're saying. I mean, I had a guy come in for a role, and he was speaking like in the American the whole time. And then we finished the scene and I asked him a question, I think, and he went, and I said, "You're not American, you're Irish." And he's like, "What? How did you know? How could you tell? I worked so hard on my American accent." And I was like, first of all, I have a lot of Irish friends. I'm Irish myself, not off the boat Irish, but I just know the accent really well. And I know when my British friends too, when you ask them a question, Americans will say, like, right? But in the British Isle area, they go more M, right?
Yeah.
Now, I have a very strong ear because of my musical background and my language studies. So I'm probably, some people get paranoid. They're like, "Oh my God, I'm like, your A vowel was a little spread," or you know what I mean? And they'll be like, "Oh my God." I don't know how much the lay person would pick something like that up, but I just happen to have a keen ear for that kind of thing. Some actors, for them, it's like, I need to be in the mode when I get in the room and then do the role. And others can just switch out, in and out, in and out. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it doesn't bother me. Like, if you can, like, "I might, how was your day?" You know what I mean? And then when you're American, if that was the role that it was required.
Okay.
Does that?
That's really helpful. I thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to be deceived and all of a sudden you come in with American, you do the scene, and then you break out of it, and then I'm like, "You lied to me. You have an Australian accent." I was like, that doesn't matter. She could do the American in the role. That's all I care about.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I had one more, if that's okay. How do you feel about, like, sometimes I've been like doing a few self-tapes and I'll just put them up on my Instagram story. Is it okay to be tagging casting directors if you picked a scene from a show that they cast? Like, is that a good way to get your attention, or it's not something that you would look into?
If it was a scene.
So if I say, like, yeah, if I picked a scene from like Homeland and just for myself to work on a piece, and you happen to be like, well, you are the casting director for it, and I tag you in it, do you think that's a good way to get a casting director's attention, by doing scenes from shows that they've casted?
Okay. This is just my instinct. It would feel weird to me.
Okay.
Especially, you're taking the risk that there's a risk in that we've already had the person in the scene, or we know who you know what I mean? And then you come in like reading for a role that maybe I didn't think that you were right for, but I was like, that's pretty risky to self-tape and show me. It's weird. I don't know. That's weird, because I've never had that happen.
Well, it's just I've just noticed some people they're picking out scenes like just to get the muscle working, and then they'll tag the casting office or the CD just to, like, I don't know if they get their attention that way.
I especially on social media. I mean, I have an Instagram account, but I don't really go on it. So I've had people tag me on Facebook with something, and like 99 other people, or they'll post on my wall, and I'm always like send me a direct message or something, but like don't post on my wall. So that's my response to a Facebook thing. If you have the email address, especially now in COVID times, I mean, if you just wanted to give me an update and be like, "Hey, here's my reel, here's the scene I just taped, if you get a chance to see it," that's less invasive to me for some reason than you tagging me on social media.
Sure.
But look, that's my opinion. somebody else could be like, tag away, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
So take these notes very, you know, with a grain of
yeah.
salt. And you know, it's the same, like, you know, how do you want to be contacted? Everybody's different.
Mhm.
You know,
Absolutely.
I was postcards, you know, when we were in the office, because I had so much to deal with on my Gmail. It probably would have gotten lost, or I've been like, oh, I'll look at that later, and then I never get to it. Whereas I would always read my mail at the end of the week. And there was something about sitting down and taking in the information that way. So that's how I worked. You know, I'm a little old school in that regard. But like Nick Picaro, who's in our office, he's like email only, you know, but that's him, you know. He's also in his early 30s, you know, he grew up with technology. That's, you know, I just think I approach it differently. I'm the old school. I like to get mail and I like to read it. And, you know, I'm thoughtful about reading your message, as opposed to just like giving me a bio and all these attachments in an email at the time. But now I'm home. And so this is the way we're going to do it. You know, send me an email. I may not respond, but send me an email.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah.
We probably have time for just one more question. And we'll go ahead and use a question from Jay Menon. See if we can get it. There we go.
Yay.
Hello.
Hi. Sorry about the virtual. Just had a question. What do you have to say about age ranges with regards to an actor submitting for a role? Their actual age a bigger factor, or what they look like on camera? As you can see, you know, that guy looks a little younger than this guy. So, you know, just talking about that.
Well, we'll never ask. We're not legally able to ask your actual age. So usually we'll, you know, I don't know. I feel like I'm getting worse as I get older, because I feel like everybody's 30, right? So I think a lot has to do with like the sensibilities, you know, where you are in your acting. And, you know, I think the mistake I would say actors make is be like, I play 18 to 40. I'm like, no, you don't, honey. And if that's the case, I'm going to skew older. So it's not what you want to play, it's what you actually play, right? I think like a 7-year range is good, like 27 to 32 or 33, you know, and hopefully we're in agreement about that. And you know, we'll get a role for something and we'll always ask if we can push it on either end of the age range. If they're like 50s, I'll be like, can we go late 40s? Can we go early 60s? You know, depending on the role. But I think it's important that you guys are clear about what you play, because I can't tell you how many times like I've gotten somebody's headshot and resume and I'm getting ready to pick a scene for them or whatever, and I'm like, I have no idea. Like it's so airbrushed, or it's so, you know. And also, are you showing the right sensibilities in your picture? One of the things that I learned, you know, like I said, teaching in the Middle East and Europe, is how different they view what a headshot is. And so like if I was in Paris, like everybody looked like they were doing a L'Oreal commercial. You know, it was just the windswept hair and this posing. And I was like, you know, and you go to London, everything's cropped and tight and very serious. Israelis, very, very severe. You know, like the women, the hair pulled back, the dramatic makeup. You were just like, oh my God, she could be 20, she could be 40. Like I literally was lost. But I think, you know, in terms of what we expect in America is like, are the sensibilities popping off the page? It's less about your look, but like, does he feel edgy? Does he feel warm? Does he feel quirky? Does he have a sense of humor? You know what I mean? Is he urban? Is he rural? Is he upper class? Is he, you know, all those things. So if that's not conveyed in your picture, then you do us a grave disservice as well as yourself. You know what I'm saying? I had a guy in a class a couple years ago. I gave him a scene and it was like this bad boy scene. And he starts the scene and I'm like, oh my God, I would never bring him in for a role like this. Like, why did I pick this scene for him? And I'm pretty thoughtful about when I pick my scenes. And, you know, I asked him about it. He said, you know, I don't know. And I keep going out for these, you know, really edgy roles. And I said, well, let's look at your headshot. And his headshot, he was in a black leather jacket, a black t-shirt. He had a lot of scruff on him, and he was sort of posed like this mean guy. I said, this isn't you. This isn't who's in the room with me. And he's like, you know, my agent told me I needed really edgy headshots to give me options. I go, all right, I get why he did that. You know, you want options. I'm like, but the thing is, you're not edgy. So now I'm aggravated because this does not represent who you are. If you're not an edgy guy, you're not an edgy guy. It's okay. You got other qualities. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yes.
That's just an example of like, you know, really, because that's the very first thing we see is your headshot.
Right.
You know, so it's got to say something. It's got to be like, oh yeah, he looks like he plays 40s, maybe early 50s, or you know what I mean, or he looks like he's got a little edge, like he could be a dick, or it looks like but he could also be not. You know,
Right.
You know.
Thank you so much. Also, and why do many roles for Indian actors still require speaking like an Indian? You know.
I know, right? You know what? The road is, you know, the road is long, and, you know, I think we're seeing a lot of changes about how we think about certain people and certain stereotypes. And I think it's going to take people being open and thinking outside the box and not putting people, you know, in like, oh yes, you fit into this little place here. We're getting there. It's a slow walk for sure. But it really just takes somebody brave enough to be like, that's not important to me. That has nothing to do with the storyline. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, you could have somebody like Sofia Vergara, I mean, who markets herself as this woman with this thick accent, and, you know, she didn't have to work out and, you know, simulate to more American to open roles for her, because she had created a brand, you know what I mean? But it would be like a British actor, you know, like a lot of American actors, oh, the British are coming and stealing our roles because they could do these really good American accents. And I was like, well, they're opening up more roles to them. You know, I don't know what else to tell you. You know, if you have a very specific ethnicity, you can choose to play within that world. Or if you want to open it up, especially in American television and film, then you should be able to have access to that if you can. It's an extra step for you, but you know, I was in Italy, and you know, people were like, I really want to work in American television. Do you think if I have my accent, I won't be able to work? And I'm like, well, you won't be playing an American. You won't be playing the girl from Ohio. I mean, that's fine, but it's your choice. You have to decide how open you want these roles to become for you. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's just been kind of my experience.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. Guys, if you are not following Kimberly Graham Casting on Facebook, definitely do it because there's so much insight. You're constantly an advocate for the actor, and you're always writing tips and things that we should be looking at or thinking about. Also get on those classes, guys.
Yeah, those are, just to be clear, I'm posting individual classes on Facebook right now, because some people, you know, just like they only want to take one, you know, because they're taken with 5 other CDs. I have multi-week classes that I've brought back into the fold, but I'm not posting those on Facebook. So if you're interested in those, you can go to my website, kimberlygraham.net, and sign up for notifications, and you'll hear about those that way. Until I figure out a streamlined way to do all this stuff. So
you need a quarantine assistant in there.
Well, I am working on it. I found somebody that can help hopefully streamline everything and take me out of more of the administrative stuff. Mm-hmm. Really been, you know, it's not enough to just show up and teach the class, but I'm emailing back and forth with people. I'm sending, you know, Zoom, I'm doing signing the scenes, I'm all that stuff. And I was like, there's gotta be a way where they could just go somewhere and just sign up and I don't have to be a part of that, you know? And I heard there is, so I'm going to look into that, but I'm not there yet.
Thank you so much, Kimberly, for all your insights and answering everyone's questions. We've all learned so much. So thank you. Everyone will be signing up for those classes shortly.
Hey, awesome. Well, it was fun, guys. You guys came with some really good questions, so I appreciate that. I get tired of like, what's your pet peeve, you know? I'm just like, ask me something interesting. Yeah, no, this was great. It was great to see you all.
Thank you. And hopefully things will open up and we can all start working again.
Yes. Well, you know what? If you don't see the roles being represented the right way, then start writing them.
I love it.
All right.
Thank you very much, everyone.
All right, guys. I'll see you later.
Good night.